Hello everyone, welcome back. It is so good to see you all. I'm looking forward to spending some time together today. I have got some great designs planned for us. I think you are really going to love today's project. So without further ado, let's just go jump right into them. Let's just jump right into project number 1. For this project, you are going to need a round pumpkin, and this is a fairly small one. I didn't measure the diameter of this, but I will and have that in the description box for you. So the first thing we're going to do is cut this pumpkin in half. So be very careful doing this. It wasn't actually as easy as I thought it was going to be to cut this in half. The foam or the styrofoam inside of this is a lot harder than I thought it was. So if you have an electric foam cutter or an electric knife, it would probably work a lot better. All right, so for our next step, I want to glue this pumpkin to this really beautiful raw edge wood round, but it was a little bit wobbly on there, so I'm just going to come in and cut a little extra of that styrofoam off to kind of flatten the bottom of it, and then I will hot glue it to our wood round. Now I'm going to go ahead and start painting our pumpkin. And my goal here is to make this pumpkin look a little more realistic, but also kind of rustic and vintage, if that even makes sense at all. It might be a little bit of an oxymoron since it is a faux pumpkin. But I'm going to go ahead and paint this, and I'm going to do several different layers of paint on this to just help achieve that look that I am going for. And I will have all the colors that I used on this pumpkin listed for y'all in the description box. So the first thing I do is paint on that first layer, let it dry really well, and then I do come back in with some dry brushing, and I'm using just several different colors here, and I kind of just gently dry brush this on, and right now it's sort of looking like a watermelon, which is actually not what I was going for, but it sort of does that. But stay with me because it does transform into an actual pumpkin after we get several layers on. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue streaking on some layers with a little bit of dry brushing, and then I will add in some more orange and just keep layering these until I get that desired effect. All right, so we have all the painting done, and I really like how this pumpkin turned out. It sort of has that, it does look a little vintagey, but it also has that look of it got picked from the pumpkin patch just a little bit before it was fully ripened. So I like the effect. I think it looks really cool, and it also definitely adds that touch of vintage to it. So for our next step, we are going to create a floral arrangement in the top of this pumpkin. So I started out by just cutting some eucalyptus sprigs off of this big bundle that I have, and I got every single one of the picks and florals for this project at Hobby Lobby. I also got the pumpkin at Hobby Lobby, and I also got this raw edge wood round at Hobby Lobby. Apparently, Hobby Lobby is my favorite place to shop. So I'm going to go ahead and just layer in these eucalyptus stems until I feel like they look really full, and they're going to just be what creates the the backdrop or the setting for this floral arrangement. So then I will just come in and add a few layers of leaves that just sort of cascade over the edge of that pumpkin and down the sides. Then I will add in some extra picks to the top. I love these pine cones so much. I just feel like they really made this whole floral arrangement pop. And the really cool thing about these foam pumpkins is these picks just kind of stuck right down in that foam, and I didn't have to use any hot glue, with the exception of the pieces that I, attached to more of the outer edges of things. Then I did hot glue those on. So from here, I'm just going to continue layering in a whole different array of florals until this piece looks the way I want it to look. And this is one of those things that is very much personal preference. You can do as much or as little here as you so choose. Add as much. Don't add much. Just create this to your liking and your taste and your style. I am really loving how this is looking, y'all. It just says elegance to me, yet rustic at the same time. It's like a elegant rustic or rustic elegance. I think this would be really beautiful with your Thanksgiving decor as well. It's just kind of putting off that Thanksgiving vibe to me. All right, so I did feel like the bottom of our wood round was a little bit plain, so I cut this lettered decal out on my cutting machine that just says fall, and I'm just going to attach it to the bottom of our wood round, just normal like you would any vinyl decal. To finish off this project, I'm just going to make sure that our letters are really well adhered to the wood board, and then I added a sawtooth hanger to the back of this so that you could easily hang it on the wall.
Okay, y'all, so what do we think of project number 1? I am really loving this, y'all. I think this turned out just stunningly beautiful. It's something different. It's out of the ordinary, but stunning. I'm not sure I've got the words. I'm loving how this turned out. Y'all are definitely gonna have to let me know what you think of project number 1.
Let's move on to project number 2. So for this project, we are going to use the other half of our styrofoam pumpkin. I didn't want it to go to waste, and I had this really cute pumpkin cutting board that I actually got at Hobby Lobby a couple of years ago when it was on clearance. So I think I ended up paying like $1 for this cutting board, and I've never really used it for anything. I bought it with the intention to use it as a cute craft project and never really did. So now we're going to put this little cutting board to good use. So I attached the pumpkin to the cutting board just like we did the wood round, and I'm going to come in and paint this very similar to our first pumpkin, although the base color on this one is more of a pumpkin caramely color. But I will also come in with all the layers to give this lots of depth, lots of dimension, and just give it that rustic flair with the layers and layers of paint. When I am adding our second and third and fourth layers of paint here, I am using a very dry brush, a dry stippling brush, and I sort of just scribble the paint on to give it those highlights and those undertones and those low lights and just lots of depth and dimension to this. All right, so now that our painting is done and I've let it all dry, I really like how this one turned out too. The color palette I'm really enjoying. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few florals to this one, but on this one I want to keep the florals a little more on the simple side. So I'm just going to add this little stem of leaves, and I did hot glue this one down a little bit to kind of just keep it held the way I wanted it to hold on there. And then I'll just go ahead and keep adding a few more leaves to this. Then I'm going to pop in a extra pumpkin and then a little pine cone, and that will be it for the floral embellishments. Okay, well, so maybe that wasn't it. I decided we had to add a couple of little curly cues. So I just sort of wrap this pit berry around my finger to kind of curl it and scrunch it a little bit. And then I'm hot gluing it right up underneath that smaller pumpkin. So it just cascades over to the side, cascades over the top of this large pumpkin off to the side. And then I will add in one more little sprig over to the left side of this just to kind of balance it out. I felt like we needed to add just a little bit of whimsy to our pumpkin cutting board here. So I've created these tags and a cute little pumpkin pie recipe for y'all. This will be available for y'all as a free printable, free download, and I will have that link in the description box. So I wanted to do a little pumpkin pie recipe to the front of this pumpkin. So I printed this out on some printable fabric, and this printable fabric does have a backing on it, so you want to make sure before you use your patch here that you remove that backing. And I just tossed that away, and then what's left here is our little fabric piece. So I'm going to glue this to the front of our pumpkin, but before I do that, I do want to fray the edges just a little bit before I glue it down. And to adhere this to the front of the pumpkin, I'm just going to use some of this clear tacky glue, and then I will go over the entire thing with Mod Podge to make sure that it's really well adhered to the pumpkin. Because our pumpkin shape is round, our pumpkin pie patch here isn't going to lay super flat. So I just took a little bit of time to kind of press it in and sort of just press it down into all the grooves and the sections of the pumpkin. But at the end, it still did have a little bit of wrinkles and crinkles in it, but I really didn't mind that because I felt like it just added to the overall charm of this piece. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and come in and apply a pretty liberal coat of Mod Podge to the outer edges of this. And then once I've done that, I will kind of take my fingers and go over it again and kind of just press it all down into all those sections and the grooves of our pumpkin.
Okay, so I had a lot of fun with this project. I think this also came out just really, really, really cute. So now I'm having a really hard time picking a favorite because this one I really kind of created on a whim. I didn't really have a plan. And so for not having a plan, I think it came together very, very well. What do y'all think of this one?
Last but not least, let's jump right into project number 3. So for this project, we're just going to need a few supplies. I am using this candle holder as going to be the base. We're going to attach the jar to this. So when you're picking out a candle holder and a jar, you do want to find some pieces that fit really well together. Then we will use some of these wooden finials. We're going to need some jar filler or bowl filler of your choice, some fall picks, and then we will also be using one of the tags from the free printable that I will have available to y'all in the description box. All right, so to get started, the first thing we are going to do is paint our finial. And I am just coming in with a little bit of antiquing wax. I paint the whole thing. I coat it pretty liberally, but then I do come in with a wet towel and sort of wipe a little bit of the excess off. And then we'll come in and do some dry brushing on this with some black paint and some gray paint so that we can kind of make this match really well with our candle holder, with our little base piece that we're going to use for our jar. As I was dry brushing my little finial here, I actually ended up with a lot more paint on my brush than I had thought I had. So when dry brushing, just be mindful of that. But anyway, so I just was able to wipe a little bit of it off. So while our finial is drying, we're going to go ahead and paint the lid of our jar. And my goal here is to try and match it as closely to our jar base as I possibly can. So I'm going to start by blending two colors together. So I dab one edge of my brush into some gray paint, which is elephant gray, and then I'll dab the other edge into some raw sienna. And I just do a light layer of this across the entire lid, and then I will let that dry pretty well before I move on to the next step. While the first layer of paint is drying on our lid, I'm going to go ahead and attach our jar to the base. And I am just using some hot glue to do this, but if you want more of a permanent forever hold, I would maybe recommend some E6000 or some really good super glue that is meant for glass pieces. I'm just using some hot glue here because if it doesn't hold forever, I'm actually okay with that because then I might be able to use the pieces for something different. Or you don't really have to even glue the jar to this base if you don't want to. You could just set it in there if you don't want a permanent hold. All right, so let's move on to adding some more layers to our jar lid. So now I'm going to come in with a little bit of black on one side of my brush and a little bit of gray on the other side. And I do this so that I can blend the colors really well. And I am trying to use a semi-dry brush to do this next step. So I will paint on a little bit of those colors, make sure I get the top and the rim coated really well, let that dry, and now I will come in with a little bit of a lighter color. And this color, I believe this color was called sandstone, maybe, or ivory, maybe. I didn't want to use white though, because sometimes white is just too stark. So I'm trying to mimic that aged look of our base here. So that's why I'm using this lighter color tone. And then I will come in and dry brush a little bit of our dark over the top of that to achieve the look I'm going for. Okay, y'all, so I feel like we did pretty good. These match pretty closely. If you wanted to, you could add another layer of highlights and lowlights to try to get it even more closely matched. But I feel like for the most part, these two look really well together, and we did a pretty good job matching that lid to the base. So now I'm going to find center on my lid, and to do this I just trace the top of the lid onto a piece of copy paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, and then we will fold it into fourths, and that's going to help us find perfect center on this so that we know exactly where to glue our finial so that it is right in the actual center of our lid. As I make my folds, I do make sure I get the crease really well pressed. So I kind of use my fingernail to press it really well because we want defined lines when we open this up. So as we open it, you can see here how it makes the perfect cross in there, and right in the middle of that cross is actually where our center is. So I will go ahead and just take my pencil, mark center, and then I kind of do poke a little tiny hole in the center as well so that I can easily draw that right onto the center of our jar, as you can see here. To attach the finial to the top of our jar lid, I'm just going to go ahead and use some hot glue, but again, you could use some E6000 or some super glue to do this. And that dot makes it so helpful to get our finial right dead center of our lid. All right, y'all, so now you know me, I have to do a little bit of embellishing to this. So I'm going to go ahead and just tie a simple bow, and I wanted a double bow here, so I strung 2 strings together and then just tied a simple shoestring bow, and then I will attach that with some hot glue to the finial. Also, to the lid here, I'm going to add in just a little tiny bit of embellishments. I'm not going to go crazy, so I'm just going to add in a leaf, a little tiny acorn, and maybe a curly Q or two. All right, to finish off the embellishing on this lid, I'm just going to add this cute little tag that we printed out on our printable fabric. And don't forget to remove the backing on this. If you don't remove that backing, it's really, really stiff. So I removed the backing so that I can have that true fabric feel to it. And then I'm just going to bunch this all up and wrinkle and crinkle it because I didn't want this to look super brand new. I wanted it to have a little bit of a worn, aged look to it. And then I will go ahead and attach it to the jute bow on the lid with a little gourd pin. So here I'm going to just go ahead and attach the lid to the jar so that I can see how long our tail ends from our bow are hanging down. And I did decide they were hanging a little too long, so I'm going to give them a quick haircut. I also didn't like the way the tag was just hanging there. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up our jar with our jar filler. And I got these cute little pumpkin things at Hobby Lobby. In fact, most of the supplies for this entire project came from Hobby Lobby. Apparently, I am a Hobby Lobby junkie. All right, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. And then I put the lid back on and fiddle with the tag a little bit. And in the end, I try to hot glue it. I just kind of give it a couple of little scrunches and bunches and then hot glue it into place so it held its shape because I didn't like the way it was just dangling down. Kind of just, it felt limp. It was just like dangling there sort of limply.
Okay, so our final project for today, our cute little jar. Oh my gosh. Okay, so y'all, I think they're all wonderful. I think they all turned out so well, and I am so pleased with how each of these projects turned out. But there is just something about this one that just really calls my name. I'm really loving this one so much. I think it's the simplicity that I like so well. And y'all, we did a pretty good job matching our lids to the candle base, didn't we? That's not bad. It took a lot of layers of paint, but it's really not bad. I'm really liking this one. So I don't know, y'all, we have some tough decisions to make. How are we going to choose a favorite from today? I don't know if I can. Alrighty friends, well, that is going to wrap up all of our projects for today. This was fun. I had so much fun creating all of these projects this week, and I really hope that y'all enjoyed these too, and that I've somehow inspired you and given you some really good ideas for your fall decor that are just kind of out of the ordinary and different from all the same that we're seeing all the time. So let me know down in the comments below which of these projects was your favorite from today. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. I had a good time and I enjoyed your company so very much. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Until then, y'all take care and I will see you soon. Bye. Here today. I can't do that. I already said that. I'm so happy to have you here today. Yeah. I feel like I say that every single week. Let's try something different.